Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to take this stack of source material on cause and effect and really build a clear, essential understanding of Kamma. I think for a long time, the whole idea of Kamma has been, watered down. It's become this generic, what goes around comes around kind of thing. We want to go deeper. We're looking at Kamma not as some vague cosmic balance, but as a really precise moral mechanism, and it's built entirely on intentional action, on the deed. So the core question we really need to answer is profound. How do our intentional deeds actually shape our future? And is there a way to, step out of the cycle of consequence for good?
And that last point is so important for setting the stakes here. This tradition has a very, very strict form of moral accounting. The texts are clear that intentional deeds, once they've been performed and accumulated, they are not just eliminated without being experienced. Think of it like a deep impression. Whether the result shows up in this life or the next one or even some distant time later, that energy has to play out. It just puts this immense pressure on our choices, moment to moment.
Okay, let's unpack that mechanism then. We get that intent matters, but what are the physics of it? How does a thought or an act today connect to a destiny maybe lifetimes from now?
The mechanism is all governed by conduct.
Yeah.
But it's more complex than just simple behavior. The system maps the quality of our intent, our mental, our verbal, our bodily conduct, and it maps it directly to our destiny. So if the conduct is rooted in things like greed or hate or delusion, the action is seen as bad. And that leads to a painful result, often ending in rebirth in a place of loss, the underworld or hell.
And on the flip side,
Good conducts. So actions that come from generosity, from loving kindness, from wisdom, that makes it possible to be reborn in a good place, maybe a heavenly realm. It's a very precise cause and effect relationship. It's all based on the ethical root of the action.
what's really fascinating to me, though, is that the chain seems to start even before the action itself. We focus on the results, but the sources point to something that kicks it all off.
That's where the real philosophical depth of Kamma is. The foundation for this entire mass of suffering. It's rooted in ignorance.
Ignorance.
Yes, that's the crucial first
Sure.
step. Ignorance. So a lack of clear understanding about reality, that's a requirement for all these choices to start multiplying. The tradition calls it instigating activity.
Uh-huh.
And these choices, which are fueled by ignorance, they are a requirement for consciousness itself, which then just perpetuates the whole system.
So if I'm getting this right, choices made without real clarity are the actual engine of Kamma. The consequence isn't just some random punishment.
Not at all. It's the logical continuation of a choice made in the dark.
Wow.
Precisely. If that first step, ignorance, is there, the whole chain reaction is, well, it's inevitable. It leads right back to suffering, old age, death, sorrow. So controlling Kamma isn't about managing isolated actions. It's about tackling the fundamental lack of wisdom that makes those choices happen in the first place.
And this accounting system can be surprisingly specific. It's not just good places versus bad places. The texts give some very literal destinations for certain behaviors, which really brings it home.
Oh, they absolutely do. And this just drives home how serious crooked intent is. The sources talk about someone who engages in crooked deeds with their body, their speech, their mind, and the result of that crooked conduct is a crooked destiny and rebirth. The texts, they don't pull any punches. They specify this leads to rebirth among species of creepy animals.
Freaky animals.
Yeah. They list creatures like snakes, scorpions, centipedes, mongooses, cats, and mice. It's a really powerful, almost visceral metaphor, isn't it? It suggests that a bent, dishonest disposition literally manifests in a bent, difficult kind of existence.
That example is vivid. It shows how precisely Kamma tracks intent. But let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger framework. The sources talk about 4 types of persons to illustrate the whole spectrum.
Right. And this framework is excellent for understanding the nuances, mainly because it shows right away that your social status in this life guarantees nothing for the next one. Your present circumstances are just the fruit of past Kamma, but the seeds you're planting right now, they determine the future.
Okay, let's break down this quadrant. Let's start with the toughest one. Dark, bound for darkness. What's that person's journey look like?
This person starts in a really difficult spot. They're reborn into a low family, say corpse workers, scavengers, something like that. They're poor, sickly, maybe physically unattractive. They just lack basic security.
A reflection of past negative Kamma.
Exactly. But the tragedy is they compound it. They continue to do bad, unskillful things with their actions, their words, their thoughts. So when they pass away, they're reborn in a state of loss, the underworld, or hell. It's a downward spiral of negative consequence.
Then you have the person who starts in that same place but flips the script. Dark, bound for light.
This is such a powerful example of moral agency. This person also starts life in a low family, poor, lacking comfort. It's a hard life. But they choose to prioritize ethical conduct. They do good deeds, they speak skillfully, they cultivate wholesome thoughts, and because they put moral action above their material situation, when their body breaks up, they're reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm.
That really shows the power of choice, no matter your starting point. Okay, so that's the dark side of the quadrant. Now, for the light side, we have light bound for darkness and light bound for light.
That's right. The light-bound for darkness person is, well, they're in a great position right now.
Yeah.
Reborn into a high, family-rich, well-known, beautiful, healthy. They're enjoying all the results of some very good past karma.
But the destiny is dark, which means they're wasting that advantage.
Right.
Exactly right. Despite their good fortune, they choose to commit bad actions. They indulge in unskillful conduct, maybe taking their privilege for granted or thinking they're above any consequences. When your body breaks up, the results of their current negative actions outweigh their past good ones, and they end up in a place of loss or suffering. It really shows how fragile current ease can be.
And then, finally, the ideal path. Light bound for light.
This person starts in that same fortunate position, high family, wealth, health. But they use their advantage skillfully. They dedicate themselves to good actions, good words, good thoughts. They just keep cultivating ethical conduct. So it's guaranteed that when their body breaks up, they're reborn in another good place.
So the big lesson from all this.
The overarching lesson is that you absolutely cannot judge someone's spiritual maturity or their destiny just by looking at their external situation. You, as a layperson enjoying life, you can't know who's perfected just by looking at their clothes or their bank account. The person in poverty might be on their way to heaven, and the millionaire might be headed for real suffering.
Which brings us to how specific we can actually get with our positive karma. It sounds like it's not just some blind machine. We can almost program it through our own intent, through specific wishes tied to our actions.
That's a really sophisticated way of putting it, yeah. And we see this especially with charitable giving. Kamma is powerful, but when you perform a wholesome action with a specific, focused mental wish, the results become incredibly precise. The sources describe a scenario. Someone does substantial good deeds giving food, drink, clothing, lamps. At the same time, they hear about these high divine beings like gods who live in fragrant roots, or even, and this is amazing, specific types of dragons, the egg-born dragons.
Oh, wait, egg-born dragons, what on earth do they represent? Why would you wish to be reborn as one?
The dragons, or nagas, and these other gods, they represent these distinct, higher, often kind of magical or powerful realms of existence. They are places that far exceed the human realm in comfort, power, beauty, how long you live. They aren't the highest heaven, but they're very desirable rebirths for anyone still seeking pleasure and power.
So the person does the good deed and then focuses their mind entirely on these happy, beautiful, specific beings.
Exactly. They settle on the thought, if only when my body breaks up, after death, I would be reborn in the company of the gods who live in fragrant roots. And the texts confirm it. Giving gifts with that specific, focused intention will lead to that exact rebirth. The giving is the fuel, and the wish is the guidance system.
But there's a huge catch, right? The sources add a really important qualification. This only works for certain people.
That's the crucial ethical anchor. This kind of successful, specific wish is reserved only for those who maintain ethical conduct. The heart's wish of a morally pure person succeeds because of that purity. For an unethical person just doing some superficial act of charity while your mind is polluted, it's not going to channel that energy successfully to a heavenly realm.
So ethical purity is the baseline. It's what allows the intent to work. What's the specific contamination, then, that we have to avoid to protect our intentions?
That's where the tradition points to the three poisons, or the three fires that have to be given up. Greed, hate, and delusion. A person who is overcome by any of those three will inevitably do unskillful things. And those actions, fueled by those fires, they lead to suffering and ultimately to a painful destiny. Purity just means extinguishing those three fires. That's what allows wholesome intentions to guide Kamma.
Okay, so we've established that Kamma is a closed system. Intentional deeds have to be experienced. It suggests this potentially endless cycle. So what does this all mean for someone who wants permanent liberation? If this engine of consequence is so tightly bound, how is it even possible to escape the system?
The only way to stop the machine is to remove the fuel. The cessation of suffering, and with it, the end of future Kamma results, is defined as the complete sating away and cessation of craving. And crucially, it's not just one type of craving. It includes craving for sensual pleasures, craving to continue existing in any form, and even the craving to end existence. All of it.
And this craving is fundamentally tied to what we think of as us, right? Our sense of self.
Exactly. The source of suffering is identified as the five grasping aggregates: form, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness. These are the building blocks of our experience that we grasp onto and mistake for a permanent, stable self. We cling to them, thinking, this is mine, I am this. But the deep realization is that these components are all impermanent. They're inherently tied to suffering, and they're perishable. When you stop grasping, the momentum for continued existence just stops.
And the roadmap for doing that is the Noble Eightfold Path. For listeners who want to know the practical steps to dismantle Kamma, how does this path work?
The Noble Eightfold Path, which includes things like right view, right thought, right speech, right action, it's a practical training system. It's the mechanism that directly leads to the end of suffering because its whole development relies on seclusion, on fading away, on completely letting go. It's like a powerful river, guiding the practitioner always toward the ocean of extinguishment where the fires of Kamma can't burn anymore.
This internal approach is pretty different from other spiritual views at the time, isn't it? Other views that were also trying to find freedom from action and consequence.
Oh, it creates a fascinating contrast. For instance, the Jain view focused on eliminating past beads by undergoing these severe, grueling physical austerities, basically punishing the body to wear away old Kamma.
So an external approach.
Very much so. The Buddhist teaching, though, it focuses internally. It doesn't try to get rid of past results through self-notification. Instead, it tries to realize the end of rebirth by ceasing the fuel for future Kamma, the grasping and craving. When grasping stops, consciousness doesn't find a foothold, existence ceases, rebirth ceases, and the whole mass of suffering just ends. It's about ending the root cause, not punishing the historical effects.
So our deep dive today shows that Kamma is so much more than just ethical payback. It's a profound, precise system of moral gravity. Conscious, intentional deeds direct our future outcomes across cosmic scales. But the ultimate insight here is that the goal isn't just to optimize your next life into some better realm. It's about realizing the impermanence of it all and abandoning the very fuel that drives the engine, craving and grasping.
And the sources give us this tangible, almost unbelievable evidence of the results of skillful, focused intention. The Buddha once recalled that he had developed a mind of love metta for 7 straight years. This wasn't just a passive thought, it was a deep, cultivated, positive intention. And the result was just astonishing. For 7 eons of the cosmos contracting and expanding, he hadn't returned to this world. He achieved rebirth in the highest heavenly realms. That is the cosmic outcome of concentrated, positive, intentional action.
That one story puts an incredible weight on our daily moment-to-moment focus. If 7 years of intensely cultivated positive intention can create eons of peace and freedom, we'll leave you with this to think about. What single intentional deed or what conscious, skillful thought can you start cultivating today to fundamentally reshape your own destiny?